everybody. This is a Burdinator video where we're going to be talking about something. Now, I wasn't going to make a video today, but I got a question here from Moto Madness, and he painted in his comment. To sum up his comment, he said he painted a Nerf long shot black and red. Very, very nice color choice, might I add. Very nice color choice. And now it shoots 10 feet. I don't know if there is something wrong with the internals. So, here is the video of possible problems. See, the typical way you usually paint a Nerf blaster, for anybody who's starting out painting Nerf blasters, you disassemble the entire blaster. Like, unscrew everything and pull it all apart. Like, the entire thing. All together, just pull it apart. This thing does not seem to want to come apart, probably because there's a screw somewhere in there. Something. So, and paint it that way. That way none of the internals get messed up and any of that such. But if you aren't going to pull the whole thing apart, the best thing you do is you take your masking tape and you wrap anything that has exposure into the internals up. So if I was going to paint this, I would wrap this in tape, I'd wrap the muzzle in tape, I'd wrap the bottom of the magazine well in tape. I'd just put a piece of tape over that. And I'd also put it over the back plunger area, because that's also functionality purposes. When you put a stock on there, it should slide on smooth like butter. So if you paint that up, it might not be too good. So you use masking tape. In terms of painting, if you ever decide to hydro dip, you want to use hardware store paints, and make sure they're oil-based paints, because water-based paints like this paint here, this high-end Montana Gold spray stuff, these are great paints, but these are not good for hydro dip because they're water-based, which means when you put them into a tub of water, they will want to mix with the water and not really go onto your blaster. And it makes for a horrendous sight. So you might not really want to do that unless you only use one. So if you use one, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But if you use more than one of your water-based, it just won't work. It just won't work. Trust me on that one. I've made that mistake and I've had to restart an entire project. So yeah, stick with oil-based sprays, because they won't mix up with your water if you hydro dip, and they're also really high-end paints. I like to go for Butte Tone Rust Coat is my go-to, and also Rust-Oleum is my go-to for spray paints. Also, do it in a well-ventilated area for spray paint. Very, very well-ventilated area. There's a bunch of fumes that come with that. Some of them like to bounce off water if you hydro dip, so outside would be more than ideal. And if you're working in cold water when hydro dipping, use hot water. For your after painting, once you've dipped, there's a number of things you can do. You can use water slide decals and then your clear coat, or you can just some water slide decals to make it decked out a bit, and another thing you can do is, now this is where I bring in your water-based paints. I personally like to go for my colors, like my colorful colors. I go for Citadel paints. You can get these at Games Workshop and the majority of your tabletop gaming stores. These are a premium paint. They will cost a little bit more at $5 a pop. So just keep that in mind. Another thing, if you want for cheaper paints or some military tones, I highly recommend Tamiya Color. These are what I use for any of my model kits, is Tamiya Color. And those are very good. Those are water-based paints, but they're also hand brush paints, so you won't really want to be spraying them in the first place, unless you have an airbrush. For when you do your final touch-ups for paint, I just got a set of fine tip paintbrushes off at Michael's. Just get a bunch of paintbrushes from Michael's. You can get them for relatively cheap. You can get lots for cheap. They'll do the trick. You'll probably want to go for cheaper because depending on how much painting you use, and if you use oil-based, which is a pain in the ass to clean your brush with, is oil-based, then you'll probably want a surplus of spare brushes. So that is technically the theoretically possible way to proper way to paint it. Now, what could go wrong? So, if you don't do these things, what could go wrong is you could get some paint inside of your blaster that could clog up this, because you want this to be as smooth as possible inside of your plunger tube. You want it to be pretty much as smooth as possible for your plunge rod to go as fast as possible to get more compressed air and faster FPS. So if you get paint in there, it could get clogged up. It could slow down. So despite having a good spring, it could just slow down like to a halt. I have a plunger in here ready, available for demonstrations. Probably not. We'll just use this thing. It won't be smooth enough. It will just slow down, depending on your spring weight. That could be one problem. Another problem is, in this case, he says long shot. Now, the long shot, if you have a older model of long shot, those will work well. But they're also using an indirect plunger tube system, which means you're not going to get that far. My best example, and I will be right back, the long strike. This is the closest example I have to your long shot, is the long strike. Now, it uses an indirect plunger system, which means right out of the box, it's not going to be that good. And if you're getting the anniversary one, the new released long shot, it's even worse. I would recommend the review on that one to watch Lord Drax review on the long shot, the new one, the anniversary, I think it is called, version of it. Go check his stuff out. He pretty much covers on what's wrong. It doesn't even work as well as the original. But the original, if I load a dart in, because of the indirect plunger tube system, you don't get a lot of FPS. Like the Clone Trooper helmet over there, Clone Trooper Bob, of course, he's sitting about 25 feet away from me. This is a little bit of a raise, but yeah, that cleared just about 25 feet. Just about. It wouldn't have gone too much further. So there's really not a lot of power coming out of indirect plunging tube springers to begin with. So your problem could be just because of your plunger tube system. It could be indirect depending on the model. Long shot, long strike, you're probably going to be looking at an indirect plunger tube system. And my answer to that problem would be to go buy a kit from Orange Modworks. You can also find kits from there, from Out of Darts, from NF Strike, and eBay. You can get kits from there, worker kits on eBay for that, I'm pretty sure. And it will be a simple Springer mod, so keep that in mind. The other issue is, and this happened to my modded Retaliator, is on your plunger tube, on your plunger rod, I should say, not tube, your plunger rod, you typically get something that looks like this. This is called an O-ring, and this is an indirect plunger tube system. But what you get right here is an O-ring, and what this does is it pretty much allows everything to work properly. It's a little rubber tube thing that goes around your blaster and pretty much what allows air to be compressed. This can fall off. It's fallen off of my retaliator before, and it pretty much, if to know that this is your problem, when you load it and shoot it, it makes a loud click because there's no air compression. It'll just make a snappy click sound. So that's usually how you tell that this is your problem. This has fallen off of your blaster. So your best bet, if you're not achieving normal FPS or normal ranges on your Nerf gun after painting it, it could be any number of those problems. Just focus on your plunger system and maybe look at getting it reworked. There are plenty of mod guides. I would have gladly done one myself, but I do not have a long shot. I only have a long strike. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this video helps you with any of your future painting projects, and if you have a problem with blasters that you've painted, I hope this helps you fix those said problems. My name is the Burdinator, and this has probably been more of a burden to watch, but thank you anyway, and I'll see you next time.